You've probably done it without telling anyone. You're sitting alone in your car with the windows up, and suddenly you're defending yourself against an argument that hasn't even happened. You're in the shower, rehearsing exactly what you're going to say to someone tomorrow. You're cooking dinner and quietly narrating what you're doing, or walking through an empty room while explaining a decision to yourself as if someone is standing there listening. Then, for a second, you catch yourself and think, why am I talking out loud when nobody is here? Most people have experienced this, but very few talk about it. Not because they're necessarily embarrassed, but because it feels strangely difficult to explain. How do you describe having an entire conversation when the room is completely silent? The truth is that private conversation may reveal something important about how your brain processes emotions, decisions, stress, and uncertainty. Before we go deeper, if you're fascinated by the hidden psychology behind everyday habits and human behavior, subscribe to Veltrix Mind. We explore the thoughts and mental patterns that quietly shape the way we think, feel, and behave. When you talk to yourself, something interesting happens. A thought that felt confusing inside your head suddenly becomes clearer once you put it into words. Maybe you're trying to solve a problem at work, deciding whether to send a difficult message, or trying to understand why someone's behavior bothered you. Inside your mind, everything can feel tangled together. But when you say, okay, here's what actually happened, your brain begins organizing the information. You're separating facts from emotions, one event from another, and what you know from what you're simply assuming. This is one reason people sometimes discover the answer to a problem while talking out loud. They weren't necessarily missing information. Their thoughts simply needed structure. In a strange way, your voice can become a tool your brain uses to turn a confusing collection of feelings into something you can actually examine. But self-talk isn't only about solving problems that already exist. Sometimes your brain creates entire conversations about things that haven't happened yet. You imagine someone criticizing you, and you immediately practice your response. You picture a difficult meeting and rehearse every possible question. You imagine telling someone how you really feel, then play their reaction in your head. This can look like overthinking from the outside, but there's another explanation. Your brain is constantly trying to predict what comes next. Uncertainty creates tension, and rehearsal can make the future feel slightly more manageable. It's similar to mentally practicing before an important performance. The problem is that your brain doesn't always know when preparation has become unnecessary repetition. You may start with one useful rehearsal and end up having the same imaginary conversation 20 times, each time searching for a perfect response that reality may never require. There's a reason these conversations often happen in the car, bedroom, shower, or kitchen. These environments give your brain something it rarely gets during the day: space. When you're surrounded by people, notifications, work, music, and constant stimulation, your attention is being pulled outward. But when everything becomes quiet, thoughts that were pushed into the background suddenly become noticeable. That's when you may start reviewing your day, remembering something someone said, questioning a decision, or thinking about a problem you've been avoiding. The silence didn't create the thought. It simply removed the distractions that were keeping you from hearing it. For some people, solitude becomes almost like a private meeting with themselves. And during that meeting, emotions they never had time to process during the day finally get a chance to speak. There's another side to self-talk that people often overlook. Sometimes you don't talk to yourself because you're confused. You do it because you're trying to calm yourself down. After making a mistake, you might quietly say, "It's okay. You'll figure it out." Before something stressful, you might tell yourself, "Just breathe. Take it one step at a time." What's fascinating is that you often use the same language you would use with someone you care about. In that moment, you're becoming your own source of reassurance. Your mind creates a trusted voice when external reassurance isn't available. This can be especially powerful during moments when you feel alone, overwhelmed, or uncertain. Instead of waiting for someone else to tell you that everything will be okay, part of you learns how to provide that reassurance yourself. Your inner voice isn't just describing your life. Sometimes, it's helping you get through it. But there is a point where self-talk can change. The same mental system that helps you understand a problem can keep you trapped inside it. Imagine replaying an argument from 3 days ago. At first, you're simply trying to understand what happened. Then you start imagining what you should have said. Then you imagine what they might say back. Then you create another response. Before you realize it, you're having an argument with a person who isn't even there. The conversation keeps changing, but you never reach an ending. This is where thinking can become rumination. You're no longer moving toward a solution. You're repeatedly circling the same emotional wound. And the frustrating part is that your brain can make this feel productive because you're constantly analyzing something. But movement isn't the same as progress. Sometimes, thinking more doesn't bring clarity. It simply gives the same thought more opportunities to become louder. If you want to understand yourself better, listen carefully to the way you talk to yourself when nobody else is around. Notice the words you use after making a mistake. Do you immediately say, "I'm such an idiot"? Or do you say, I made a mistake, I'll fix it? Notice what happens when someone doesn't respond to your message. Does your mind immediately create a story that they don't care about you? Or can you accept that you don't actually know what they're thinking? These tiny conversations reveal your deeper beliefs about yourself and other people. Your inner voice often carries old fears, expectations, and insecurities that you don't consciously notice during normal conversations. That's why self-talk can be so revealing. The way you speak to yourself in private may tell you more about your emotional world than the confident version of yourself that everyone else gets to see. So how do you know whether your inner conversations are helping you or hurting you? One simple clue is what happens afterward. Healthy self-talk usually leaves you with more clarity. You understand what you're feeling, make a decision, solve a problem, or calm yourself down. Unhelpful thinking often leaves you with the same question you started with, only now you're more exhausted. You feel like you've thought about everything, but somehow you've gone nowhere. The goal isn't to stop talking to yourself. That would be impossible and honestly unnecessary. The goal is to become aware of the conversation. When you notice yourself replaying something for the 10th time, you can pause and ask, am I solving this or am I simply repeating it? That question creates distance between you and the thought, and sometimes that distance is exactly what your brain needs. One of the most important things you can learn about your inner voice is that a thought isn't automatically a fact. Your brain can produce a prediction, a fear, a memory, or a possibility and present it with incredible emotional intensity. You might think, they definitely hate me, simply because someone sounded distant. You might think, I'm going to fail, because something went wrong once before. You might replay an embarrassing moment and convince yourself everyone remembers it, even though most people probably forgot it days ago. Your mind is designed to generate possibilities, not always to distinguish perfectly between reality and imagination. So the next time your inner voice becomes intense, don't immediately fight it. Instead, ask, is this something I know or something my mind is predicting? That tiny distinction can completely change your relationship with your thoughts. So the next time you catch yourself talking quietly in an empty room, don't immediately think something is wrong with you. Maybe you're solving a problem. Maybe you're rehearsing something important. Maybe you're processing an emotion you didn't have time to deal with earlier. Or maybe you're simply giving your thoughts somewhere to go. Your inner voice has probably been with you for years, helping you make decisions, calm yourself down, understand painful moments, and imagine the future. But there's one important lesson hidden inside all of this. You are not required to obey every thought you have. You can listen without reacting. You can question without believing. You can understand an emotion without letting it control your behavior. And perhaps that's the real purpose of self-awareness, not making your mind completely silent, but learning how to sit inside the noise without letting it control you. Because sometimes the most important conversation happening in your life is the one nobody else will ever hear.